Hello and welcome to the NUFC360 podcast. Today we've got Joel, Matt and Duncan joining us. How are you lads?
Very well. How are we all doing?
Good. Well, we don't have any matches to review because we haven't had one, which is a bit strange and a bit boring. So we don't need to go with that one. Let's get straight in with it. The news that came out at the beginning of the week, and that is that Safe Standing is making a return to St James's Park in the home end for the first time in a while. I know everyone might have different thoughts. You might prefer it, you might not like it. There's different things on there. We'll go with Joel first because you're probably the closest to the area where the safe standing is going to be, and you're probably young enough to be able to stand for 90 minutes. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, for me, it's all positive. Obviously, it's been approved by the Premier League, and I think a lot of other clubs will be undertaking part of the trialing stage. So, I'd say out of the stadium, it's probably the right area to start a trial. In the Gallagher corner, because it is notoriously the most noisy area of the stadium. I think it'll help with the atmosphere. Because as much as I've, commended the atmosphere this season, and it has been brilliant, at some points during the game, it has went slightly flat. And we have shown as a fan base how much, the atmosphere can actually directly affect the players' performances. So I think that it is a big thing. And obviously with standing, that is going to help that. So from my perspective, it's a good thing,
yeah. Matt, is there a negative to safe standing, should we put it?
I'm not so sure. I don't think so. Because, when you go to look at the away games, in majority of clubs all around the country, you see the atmosphere is always great with away teams. So I think it would just probably benefit, to be honest with you. Like Joel was just saying, I think the atmosphere can be flat at times. Even though it hasn't improved massively since the takeover, it can have spells where it is a bit flat. And I think, like Joel just said, it is the perfect side and spot of the stadium to put it in. And hopefully it will improve the atmosphere even more, because obviously we want to have the best atmosphere in the league. So
we'll go to Duncan next. Obviously, he might have been old enough to be around when it was in stadiums the first time round. What's your thoughts? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you have reservations?
I think it's good. I'm glad it's not taken up as much space as I thought it was going to. Because if you look at, Spurs or Borussia Dortmund, they've got a bank, and it's a lot of people. And I thought they were talking about majority of the Gallagher. So I'm glad it's not taking up my seat in that sense. I think it's a really small section of the crowd that they've given it to. I think it's positive. I do think, going with you, Mark, to the home games, I don't think it's for everybody. I think people want to enjoy a game and not necessarily stand up for the whole game. Totally agree with what you're saying, Matt, about away support. Away games, different breed of supporter. But I think when you're at a home game, maybe you don't want to stand up for the whole game. So I think a trial's the best thing. Small section, good thing. Not taking up like the prime seats in the Gallagher or the Leazers. I'm kind of majority good thing, but let's see how the trial goes. I think it's kind of a suck it and see kind of thing. I don't know if it's going to fly, but I think it might just be a small section.
I think realistically, it was a very easy option to put it where they put it, because the fact is that's probably where most of the fans stand anyway in a home game. So regardless of whether or not they were safe stand, they were just going to stand there. So it's probably put itself in the position where it's doing it in the right way. The only thing where obviously you'd need to look at, and that, I'm one of those ones, should safe standing really be something that's needed to get the atmosphere up? No, you should be able to get the atmosphere up whether or not you're standing or sitting. But there's also things like people who may have had season tickets for years in the Gallagher, that may feel as if they're forced to move if the gala gets put. And that for me, if they're going to extend it to a fuller area and maybe to a stand, the Gallagher's the obvious choice because it's that famous one. It's like the Spurs that they've got that massive like all-in-one stand. That's where they do the stand as well. You'll have other crowds which will probably end up like that, and it's just that point where you're going, is there a happy medium to be had on that? Because like I said, not everyone wants to stand for 90 minutes. Whether or not people can stand for 90 minutes is another question on that one. So it is just that, and
I think it's finding the balance of both. Like Duncan touched on, if you have family and older people at the home games, it's going to be difficult for them to stand for 90 minutes, or if they want to stand for 90 minutes, it's probably the youngsters or the people who do tend to go to the away games who would prefer to stand. So I think it's finding the balance, and I don't know how you do that in having it in certain areas of the stadium, because you might have that Gallagate where they're going to try, or that corner, and you might have some older folk who are sitting there. Get into that and see how they're going to figure that out, because I think it will be challenging, because we saw it in the final as well. I'd see younger lads standing up next to me, and you'd see like an older lad or a family and kids sitting down next to me, and they were telling everyone to stand up, and it was hard to get the balance. So it'd be interesting to see how they do it.
I think Black Mamba said there about getting the balance, and especially the tensions, like you said, Matt, there at the final, which I was there, that was genuinely it was like a dichotomy of people, chanting, standing all game, and then there's obviously all the fans, or perhaps ones that don't go to as many games, who preferred to sit back and just watch the game. So I think by trialing it in small sections of the stadium, I think that's definitely the best way to go. I personally can't see it being stretched the entire Gallagher. I just don't think enough people would agree. And then I'd have to question myself, would I, as much as I enjoy away games, I enjoy standing and chanting, but to stand every game for 90 minutes, I mean, it has to be deeply considered. You can't just make the decision straight away. So I think by trialing the small sections, and especially this one, who I do think will be for it, and I think that will be that will be confirmed, it'll go ahead. I think that's definitely the best way the club can sort of work around the problem.
Well, to be honest, when I see in the state of some of the fans that we've got, whether or not they could stand for probably couldn't stand for 10 minutes, let alone 90. Obviously, Black Mamba's come on and said that he stood for 12 hours straight. You must be a fitter person than I am, because I'd stuck at the stand for 12 minutes. In that
exactly
sense.
It just depends on the person, doesn't it? And there's going to be a lot of different types of people in the stadium.
The only thing that I would say is what I think the club will probably end up looking at is relocating. So if there's fans that don't want to be in a safe standing area, then obviously they would have to be the priority in terms of seats elsewhere in the stadium, which I think is fairness. They should be, if they're being basically turfed out of their seat because they don't want safe standing, they then should be given priority to the available seats elsewhere in the stadium.
Yeah,
I agree.
So there's not many much that we can cover on safe standing, other than the fact that obviously it's great to see it being put into St. James' box. I know they did do a small trial up in the away end, so up in level 7, like I think the balcony section of level 7, that's been put a safe standing for the away fans, because as you said, away fans stand regardless from that one. So that it's great to see that, like you said, you've got that in the home, and it's going to be interesting to see. And it's like, that corner's always the noisy one, but does it get noisier when the stand? Yeah, it's one of those things that we need to look at in that sense. We're going to move on to the next one, which is the hopefully good news that the internationals are over. and we can now focus on domestic Premier League football. And even better news, it looks like we're getting our players back with, touch wood, no knocks. Obviously, Trippier didn't feature in the game against Ukraine, which I was so happy about. I was just like, no, just keep him on the bench. Just keep him on the bench, Gareth. No, keep him there. Yeah, it's fine. Dubravka, not really a massive worry, but yeah, he got some good results. Obviously, Jamal Lewis has actually got some, I would actually say, some positive game time, because he hasn't been getting a lot of Newcastle and that. From what the understanding, because I didn't really watch some of the Northern Ireland games, but there was, I think, his first game where he actually impressed quite a bit in that, and it's one of those ones of, you never know, he might be the leaders. At least he's been able to get that bit of competitive football in that sense. And then obviously our star man at the moment, Alexander Isak, because we all know what happened the last time you went away with Sweden. He came back and was out for months. So thankfully, he's come back. He's unscathed. I think he played 71 minutes yesterday and managed to, I think it was Azerbaijan they were playing, and he managed to get an assist and scored a disallowed goal. So your sense is, looking at a bigger issue, given where it is and where it falls in the season, should there be an international window at this time of the year? And are you thankful that we've managed to get through this international window, hopefully with no issues? And we'll go to Matt with that one first.
Well, it's a bit difficult to answer on whether to have a window around now, because there's all sorts of times you could have it. But I think, back to your second question, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because you sort of want your team and your players representing Newcastle to go and play for their countries, and because we haven't had a lot of that over the past 10, 12, 15 years. But you also don't want them to get injured. So, seeing them get call-ups, great. Like Trippier not coming on, it wasn't a bad thing, because it's not like where he's playing an international tournament. He's not on, in these World Cup games. He's not in the Euro games. So it's not these big, competitions that he's missing out on. It's just, just a qualifier. So it's not actually a bad thing that he didn't play. With Isak, I'll take a positive from it. He's got more minutes in the tank, because obviously the lads have missed the weekend. So there's a positive for Isak. But with Jamal Lewis, it's really odd, isn't it, to see a lad who hasn't played any competitive football for his first team in how long, and then to go and play, decent for his national side. So fair play to the lad. I wish he had a bit more of a chance with us, but it doesn't seem like Eddie Howe's too keen on him. But yeah, don't know what your thoughts are.
No, I just maybe think Eddie Howe doesn't necessarily think he's up to scratch yet. It might be a case where he may get there, but I just think he's not. Maybe he doesn't play the way that Eddie Howe wants him to play. Now, obviously, before the internationals started, we'd already had Shaw withdraw because of an issue with his foot, but that looks to be fine because he played on the Friday night against Forest. Obviously, we've had Miggy out injured. Obviously, what we'll go on to the next one with Gordon and that. Is there a benefit in the fact that because of some of the knocks that we've had, that whilst it is frustrating, the international break could be a benefit as well as a risk as well? We'll go with Duncan with this one. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm not saying it's a good thing at all. After 2-1, 2-1 wins, the last thing we needed was 2 weeks off. And the only good thing about it is I got to play my wild card on fantasy football. That's about it. I think I would rather have just carried on, bring this Man United game forward a weekend and get on with it. I'm confident going into the Man United game, but I love England games, but I just think, it's this is quite integral part of our season, and could have just done without the week off after a 2-1 with Wolves and Forest going into Man United. I still believe we're probably got the slight edge going into that game, this game, but I think had it been 7 days ago, I think we'd have been in a much stronger position. But thankfully, no injuries. Like you're saying, extra minutes for Isak. I put him in my fantasy football team, captained him, confident. Got West Ham on Wednesday, so I think it's good for those guys. But yeah, ideally for me, I'm 100% in Newcastle lane.
Do you know what? Thank you for saying West Ham, because you've just jogged me memory, because I don't know. I had Everton in my mind for next Wednesday, and I don't know why. I was thinking, it's Everton. Everton.
I've got an away ticket that I've kept since September, so I'll be there, but in the away end. But I've had that ticket since September last year. That's when it was meant to take place.
So yeah, it's one of those. Like I said, it is a double-edged sword in that, because it is a case of does it help us in the fact that Man U will probably have had a lot more players go away on international duty than we did. From reports, Sabitzer has picked up a knock. Obviously, Casemiro was out injured. I still think there may be mind games about Rashford, but if Rashford did miss out, then it's a real bonus in that sense. It's one of those things of where I hope it's not a hindrance to us, especially because obviously once you've come back off the win, but then again, does that win, because we did a similar thing, we won away to Leeds, against Leeds, went away for a sunshine, warm weather training, came back and went on that fantastic run that kept it up. A similar run this season would probably secure us in the top four, and like I said, it is one of those difficult ones, because Spurs have now changed their manager, so you might see an upturn in form from them in that sense. Obviously, Man U have been on a good run. Will that continue, or does the international break hamper that and maybe sort of like knock the sails out of them a bit? It's tough.
It's a tough one, but I mean, we're not gonna find out until we play Man United. It might work in our favour, it might not. It's allowed the players that were missing to recover and come back, but you can't. You can depict the full thing, and there's lots of arguments that it might hinder a form. We might not go into the game with as much of a bounce as if we played it straight after. But I think ultimately, it's got positive and negative effects, but we're not going to find out the strongest effect until we play Man United.
Yeah, I think
the crowd are going to have a big part to play in that game as well Sunday. Like I'm thinking Arsenal last season.
I think it's going to be big.
It's going to be revenge down the lines. Yeah,
100%.
I don't think Eddie Howe. No, I don't think Eddie Howe would let the players think revenge, but I certainly think the fans will think that. The one benefit which I actually think, which has probably come at the good time with regards to going away to Dubai for the warm weather training, is it's allowed players like Harrison Ashby and Anthony Gordon to really sort of like get integrated with the squad. Because obviously when you come in January, you can do little bits, but it's not until like you're away in another country for a week, you're living on top of each other in the hotels and that to really get to know each other. And I know Eddie Howe was saying that he's been able to bring players like Emil Kraft along and do like the training a bit where obviously they haven't been part of that. So that's the bonus in that sense, that it just gives that little bit of togetherness. And what we'll do is we'll move on to the sort of last-ish topic on that, and that is that Anthony Gordon seems to be back ahead of schedule, because there was a lot of doubt that he was going to miss the Man U game, but there's now reports that he's back, he's fit, and he's ready to play a part against Manchester United. Here's the question I'm going to go in with probably the difficult one, and I'm going to go to Matt with this one first, and I'm going to put you on the spot. Does Jacob Murphy get dropped for Anthony Gordon?
Well, I've been asking for Gordon to start for a few weeks, but Jacob Murphy has put in a good, solid couple of shifts. That's a hard decision, I didn't think it would be, but that is a hard decision to make, to be honest. I never thought I'd actually be thinking like this about Jacob Murphy, thinking, should he be dropped or not? But you know what? I'm going to say no, he shouldn't. I'm going to think Murphy should start, and I'll bring in Gordon off the bench after about 60, 70 minutes, depending on obviously how the game's going. Just because I'd like to see Murphy rewarded for going in and playing well. I know it all depends on who you play, but I just don't think it's right if he gets dropped and Gordon comes straight in, because he's done more than enough to start, in my opinion.
Joe?
It is a difficult one. Like, it's the thing, like, I think he's going to use him as an impact, and I think Murphy will continue to start, because you've got this thing where I've brought up in previous podcasts, Saint Maximin has been utilised at right wing. His stats there are a lot better than left wing, but I think that's just me being very hopeful. I can't imagine how he's going to switch him with the right and then allow Gordon to start on the left. You've also got this thing about Almiron not being injured. Don't know if I believe that. It was off a random Twitter person who apparently bumped into him in an airport, but we have to take that with a very small pinch of salt. But no, I think Murphy has been. I've always been a fan of Murphy, not because he doesn't have a whole lot of ability, but he certainly possesses the passion, and he's got family ties to Newcastle, the city. He's one of the most passionate players I think that we've got. The little wave at Southampton I loved. I know he got a lot of stick for that, but I was a fan of that. But yeah, he has played well. He can actually cross with his right. And that's something Almiron struggled. Almiron's majority of the time he's forced to cut back in with his left, and that he's also good at early crossing, something that I feel like we've missed on the right all season. I fancy him against Luke Shaw if it is short to start. But I don't imagine Gordon will be coming straight into the lineup.
Do you know what? I had to check myself because I'm sure got sent off, and I'm going, no, that was for England.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I actually think Luke Shaw I don't think he's the best at left back. I think that's where there's probably the weakness in Man U. It is. I actually totally agree with you with the cross one, because I actually thought his delivery in the last two games has been really. And I actually thought the delivery was a bit more, but yeah, I think it was one of his balls that when Elliot Anderson had the shot, where it got saved before he scored a legitimate goal. But no, I've been really impressed with him, and it is one of those things of maybe Anthony Gordon's the type of player, to have on the bench to come off in that sense. The other thing that we're looking at, which is probably gone under the radar a bit, but Big Joe's back. He served his 2-match suspension.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, the stories were that obviously Maximin had his injury. Yeah, and that's why he came off the pitch against Forest. Not because he was shocking and poor, but we'll clear over that one. So it is a case of looking at, Gordon may go in for, you might still get Murphy, but Gordon might go in over that side, or Joe Linton might. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I put this scenario on my Twitter. It's an interesting one, because you've got to look at realistically. Eddie Howe isn't going to drop Longstaff. He's gonna keep Longstaff, Bruno, and then Willock's been playing so well as well. So then, is he going to put Joe Linton straight back in the centre? Is he going to start left wing, or is he going to keep him on the bench? And I do think he's been integral to the entire season. So I think Eddie Howe will probably put him straight back into the lineup. But it's a question of where would he then move Willock out of the left wing, which we've seen before, or knowing Eddie Howe and what he's like, he could make a case with starting Joe Linton left wing and say to track back, help in defence, because it's obviously Man United. But no, I'm interested to see what he does. I am.
But see, Willock has actually been given a free role. If you actually watched him, because he was on the left, he was in the centre, he was over on the right.
It was a Roman left centre.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
So he was like all over in that sense. Do you know what? For the last 2 games that Joe Willock's had, you couldn't. Yeah, it would take a very, very big man to drop Joe Willock after his last 2 performances. Because I actually thought he was probably man of the match ahead of Isak against Forest. I thought he was outstanding. And it's like you're looking at that and you're going, yeah, this is the player we paid 25 million for.
I think Joe Willock will start against Manchester United. That midfield three is what I think he'll play. Then I think he'll play Joe Linton out on the left, And then
I think that is the most likely team. We'll see.
He just loves Joe Linton. I just don't think he'll not put him straight back in. I feel like he's one of his favourites, him and Bruno.
But then the question is, can Big Joe play like in the centre? Because obviously Isak sometimes likes to drift out. And that's where the issue is you're then going to need Joe Linton to drop in into the centre. He probably still can, to be fair. Yeah, he's a goal scorer now, man. He's not the Joe Linton of Steve Bruce either. He can score goals, this lad. But no, but that's the thing.
He drops more to the left when ISM plays, doesn't he? Because ISM can play through the middle. But I don't think you'll need to do that. I feel like Isak will be trusted just because he trusts Joe Linton and Joe Willock will have that rotation. I just think that he'll be okay with Isak down the middle. And then eventually he'll make changes later on in the game.
I point out with Black Mamba, and that's sometimes the issue in central midfield, and that is that Joe Linton and Sean often play the same style of football, doing the same thing. That can restrict us going forward. There is a point in that, but I sometimes think, against the big sides like Manchester United, do you not want, you can batter midfielders like, Big Joe and Sean to do that. But I think Bruno will do that as well, because he's not one to shy away from a challenge in a battle. It's one of those ones. Eddie Howe will spring surprise. He could tell us that Gordon's out in the press conference, and I wouldn't believe him.
I think that's one thing we've learned over the past couple of weeks. I mean, not that we didn't know it already, but it really is to just not pay attention of time frames with injuries.
Eddie Howe's
who's injured and who's not injured. So, but you know what? That's good. It's a nice little touch. It's a dark touch. Some other managers do it as well, and I think it can only be a benefit for the team. When oppositions are listening to press conferences, pre-match reports, and whatnot, then why not do it?
Well, is that why say it? Oh yeah, so and so's back fit. So and so's back fit. Yeah, say it. Oh yeah,
exactly.
Knock and that, and then spring the surprise on the team sheet.
Yeah, the only people that are going to be annoyed is the media when they report that he's out for X amount of months and then he's not. But yeah,
well, except Andy Sixsmith, because he never asks anything related to like injuries.
Yeah,
he always asks some sort of like silly question in the press conference, and in that sense. I'm gonna. Do you know? I am actually going to ask the question. This isn't the look ahead, but we'll do it. Will we get revenge against Man U? And I'll go with Duncan first.
I think I've already answered this. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I am a gambling man, and I would put money on Newcastle to win 100%. And like I said earlier, I think 100% this is down. Think back to the Arsenal game when we took Champions League away. Think back to that first game when Nottingham Forest at home, when the takeover was taking place. That's the kind of level that we need to elevate to as home fans, to put the absolute fear of Christ up Man United when they come out of that tunnel and batter them. Absolute. So they go in at half time and they're going, what the fuck is happening? Like, you saw the Amazon documentary when they were filming it. I was in there in the stands. Amazon were filming it inside when we battered Arsenal. That's what we need to do. 100%. And it's not necessarily revenge, because you know, I went to the cup final with Mark. I had a really good day. I know we lost, but I still will never forget that day as long as I live. It was fantastic. Even though we lost, it was fantastic. The result was actually irrelevant. You know, it would have been nice to win, but the result was irrelevant. There's no revenge. It's just, we won Champions League, batter Man United, batter Tottenham, and then batter Arsenal, and then we've got Champions League. That's it. So for me, I think yes, and it will be down to us as supporters to get it over the line.
Matt?
Yeah, similar to what Duncan was saying, to be fair. For me, the final was a lot harder to take because being from the Midlands, you're surrounded by a lot of glory hunters. They don't tend to support the local teams because they're no good.
I'm from London, mate.
Yeah. So
there's enough of them down here.
Support Newcastle, you're not a glory hunter, are you? Well, I wouldn't have chosen to support Newcastle if I had Mike Ashley as the owner. But yeah, it was difficult. That day was very difficult. And for me, it's revenge. I completely understand that we should, you shouldn't think like that. But I feel like the players will already know that. Eddie Howe won't need to tell them, listen, lads, they beat us in the final on that day. We should be winning every game anyway at home, but this will just add to it. I think this will just add that bit of, right, lads, remember that Arsenal game when we absolutely battered them? Let's get the crowd behind us and let's show Man United what we should have done on the final, because I come home from that game absolutely, I was ready to go again the next day. I was absolutely gutted and it was a tough one to take. And for me, it will be a bit of revenge. And I hope the players do have a hint of that, but not take over them so they end up getting too emotional. They keep their heads, keep the cool, and they just take control of the game, because it's a long overdue, a smashing against Manchester United. It needs to come. And
I was just going to say, I think in Housewife's Choice, 5-0 Newcastle. That's what I'm saying. And a Sven Botman chip to make it 5.
Imagine that.
As long as he's recovered from his food poisoning.
Yeah.
Philip Albert style.
And last but not least, Joe.
Yeah, obviously it'll be a tough game, but I've just got to echo exactly what Duncan and Matt have just been saying. The crowd is going to be integral to this game. They really are. I think it is I don't know if it's going to be as high as a level of the Arsenal game, because that was just complete different gravy. But I do think it's got to be up there if we are going to try.
Plus, it was a nighttime game.
Yes, there's always that adds to the atmosphere. But no, I'd love it. I think, again, echoing what Matt said, I think the players will be absolutely after revenge. Eddie Howe won't be pushing it. I don't think that's the angle. I don't think that's the man he sort of is. But you already know Dan Burn, he's going to be starting, I imagine. He'll be getting into challenges. Bruno will be picking up his, weekly yellow card, as he always does. He's smashing into them.
No, it's Joe Linton that's picking up the yellow cards.
Joe Linton will be coming back to come. Yeah, he'll come back to get his yellow cards. No, it'll be a tough game, but I genuinely, if someone put a gun to my head and I had to save my life, who was going to win the game, I'd say Newcastle. I really do think that we are going to win. And if you're going to ask score predictions, I'm ready for that as well, if that was your next question.
No, I wasn't going to ask score prediction, but, nice of you to bring violence into these sort of things. Yeah, Joe, just bring that little bit of darkness to it. Yeah.
That's my confidence right now. Newcastle's.
If someone's going to put a gun in my head for me life,
well, that's my confidence.
Well, you're very confident then. Let's just talk the triggers. Yeah, let's just talk. There's no bullets coated in that then. There's so much that I want us to win, just because I hate Man U. It doesn't have, it's got nothing to do with the cup final. I hate Man U. I just want to beat them anytime we play them. I just think their supporters are a bunch of smug. Yeah.
They were disgraceful at that cup final. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They were.
I've
Leaving
never seen
before
a load
full
of
time.
shit.
They had the scarf. Yeah. That was the only thing, and that was supplied off the company. They were selling them after.
The scarves paid for by the Glazer family that they then chanted against, and may still have them as owners, because from the reports that we're looking at, the Glazers might not want to sell the club fully.
That was what the frustrating part was about it, though. Like, a lot of their fans, a lot of Manchester United fans support Manchester United because they're a big club and they win things, and they like to see their team win things. Like, a lot of Newcastle fans are from Newcastle, or they just choose to support Newcastle because they've got like this weird love for the club. So when we didn't win, it was harder for us to take them where if they didn't win. Like when they won, they looked at us and it was like the first thing they could think of, especially a lot of my friends, was to take the mick out of us losing. When for me, that's not the first thing that would come to my head. It would be to, enjoy the moment with my family and my friends and talk about how good we were and not think about Manchester United. Yeah. But that's the first thing on these glory hunters' minds. Is
yeah, well, that's the thing. I think the only chance we heard,
the other team.
Yeah, the only chance we heard leaving the stadium was about Alan Shearer. I'm going, mate, what about chance about Eric Ten Hag or Rashford or Casemiro, who, the players that won the trophy for you sing those sort of songs. But like their attitude was, it's just the Carabao Cup. Yeah, you haven't won a trophy in 6 years, so the Carabao Cup's actually quite a decent cup for you. We haven't won one since Christ knows when, and it meant quite a lot to us. You could see that in the fan base, and that like I said, I'll probably never forget that weekend. I absolutely loved it.
So what Duncan said, though, Duncan just said, like, the result didn't really matter. It was the day out, wasn't it? In the occasion of going there and doing that. For them, it's just a day out to do something.
Well, they didn't rock up until 20 minutes before the kick-off.
Didn't
see the Man U shirt until Sunday.
And they left before the lift of the trophy as well.
To be fair, they only... but see... That's because they live in London, so they know what the rush is like. So that's why they were leaving early, because they know. The tube's going to be busy.
When we were leaving, if they hadn't been given their free red scarf, you wouldn't know who was a Man United fan and who, they were all wearing black t-shirts, black jackets, jeans. Every Newcastle fan had a black and white shirt. It was just, like I say, obviously I was gutted about the result and all that, but for me, I've only supported Newcastle 28 years, but I've never been to a cup final. I've never had a day like that. I watched the Arsenal and the Man United Wembley finals on telly around my grandparents, but I've never done that. And, I've only, experienced that for the first time, and I just loved it, regardless of the result. If we'd have won or lost, I still would have enjoyed it just as much as I did. It was magic, and never forget it. And hopefully the first of many. And next time we'll win.
See, I think there was also the run as well, like the fact, the quarter-final against Leicester, where the stadium was rocking, the semi-final legs against Southampton, like the run to get to where we were. It was just everything, like nights, you just couldn't. The Southampton game, honestly, was like unreal, the atmosphere. It was amazing.
That's why.
And it's like those are the sort of things.
That's why I bought 2 of these shirts, because these shirts will go down in history. This one and that one, like they will go down in history as like the 94-95 Les Ferdinand, Alan Shearer, Tino, Beardsley, that shirt. Which I had that shirt, and I went to Barcelona in the Champions League, and I cut the fucker in half, and sewed it together with a Barcelona Kappa shirt to go to the game and sat in the Gallagate. And now both shirts are worth over £100 each. But anyway, I'm not cutting these in half. But that's why I got them, because this season is, you'll never forget this ever.
No, it is. Like, the fact that we will be going into April still with a genuine chance of finishing in the top 4. It's sort of like, it's like you have to pinch yourself and go, this is a Newcastle United side that, again, isn't the best at everyone. Like I said, if we go back to the cup final, they were bringing players on like Sancho. We were bringing on Jacob Murphy, which is no diss to him because he's been amazing in the last 2 games. But in that sort of sense, that's the level of depth that Manchester United have. And yet, it is just a frustrating thing. But we got to a final, and that's what we need to look at. As look, this is progress. These are steps that we're making. I didn't expect us to get to a cup final in the first full season. Of the new owners there. So we're already ahead on that.
Or qualify for Europe.
No, and there's still a chance of doing that. But it's just one of those things of, yeah, even if we don't get top four, as long as we've beaten Man U, that's a bonus for me, because I hate them with a passion.
Yeah.
Honestly
Agreed.
do. Honestly do. I just don't like them. They're well, I'm going to stop there before I say something that I regret. What we'll do is we'll wrap this up now. We'll keep this shorter than what I'm used to, but I'm learning. I'm going to rein this in. Black Mamba, I have seen you comment about McTominay, but I'm not even going to get started on that one because that.
I've just read that and I thought, oh no.
No, I'm not even starting on that.
Not for me.
We'll leave that for another one. Yeah,
exactly. So we'll do that. We'll leave that, and we will likely be back on Friday for the look ahead. As usual, we'll look ahead in more depth to the Man U game. But thank you for joining us. Welcome back to domestic Premier League football. Now that the international window is going to be shutting, and see you next time.